welcome back to another Power of, now I don't even remember the name of our series, Power of Women in Data. So I did prepare very, very, very well for this session, but obviously everything failed at the last minute. But I'm glad tonight for today, speakers are my friends, so it's okay. So I think James already covered some of the housekeeping things. So yeah, please be aware of that. We're going to record this session, so yeah, please don't turn on the cameras if you're not part of it. If you don't want to part of it. So the first things first, people who are new to this one, and if you're not sure about what we do here, so the whole idea behind this series is to learn and encourage more women. I mean, me and James have been running the London Power BI user group for a very long time, but unfortunately, we don't really had many women speakers. There are various reasons because of the many commitments and various reasons, but we wanted to have these virtual sessions even after the pandemic. That's how this whole concept started. And this is to learn here not only the data concepts, so a bit about we would be able to ask some personal questions and how they managed to achieve all this career and all these things. So that was the whole idea behind this. And for today we have Shannon and Steph. It's like I'm really, really fortunate to call them as my friends. I was trying to remember when was the first time I saw them. I think it was a few years ago. Actually, I saw them on stage presenting about their amazing work they did on the EGPAF. Well, I hope I'm saying it right. The good willing work, and these two girls went on the stage and they did like amazing. And they came back, and after they came down, I went to talk to them, and they said, "Oh, Prati, we know you." So it's like that was like, oh wow. So that was really, really cool. So for today, the agenda is we're going to ask some questions. We have come up with some questions to ask Shannon and Steph. And but audience, if you like, all the attendees who, if you have any questions, please use the chat window to ask the question, and we will try to ask those questions to Shannon and Steph. And also please use the chat window to tell us where you are from. So that gives us a nice vibe in the chat. So I will, yeah, James, do you want to start asking the questions, and then I'll jump in?
Yeah, sure. So, well, why don't you, let's start off probably at the beginning. Why don't you introduce yourselves and tell us a bit more about how you got into data? That would be great.
First. Okay, I'm Stephanie. Oftentimes we are interchangeable. People call me Shannon, they call Shannon Stephanie, so it's fine if you get us mixed up. But I am Stephanie, and my background is as a software developer 1,000 years ago, but then I got into data through reporting services, which also feels like 1,000 years ago. But one of the reasons I went into IT was because I thought I just wanted to be by myself, and not have to talk to people in a job. It turns out that's not the best way to do things. So I ended up going to a PASS summit many years ago, and I just had my eyes opened to how valuable community is and how really special the data community in particular is. And it just changed everything for me. It changed my whole career. It changed my friendships. It changed my work. It was just a wonderful way to really learn more and help each other. So that was the turning point for me. And then with that, I just got all into Power BI, of course, because why wouldn't you? And then that's it in a nutshell.
And my name is Shannon. Steph is a hard act to follow, but I will try. You may notice that we are together during COVID times. We followed COVID precautions, just so everybody knows. We believe in science, and we believe that COVID is real, but we are up at Steph's cabin in the beautiful woods in Pennsylvania, so that's where we're dialing in from. My background has nothing to do with technology at all. I actually have been working in public health for the early part of my career, and I was responsible for reporting on data about the programs that we were running. So I was essentially an analyst in public health. And it was actually working in that role that I was so fortunate to meet Stephanie, who became my mentor and introduced me to doing things smarter and more efficient using Power Query, and then subsequently when Power BI came out, moving into Power BI. And that started a whole journey for me. And I now actually am working at Microsoft, which is crazy, as a content developer. So I am developing training materials for anyone who wants to use Power BI for the data analyst role. So my life took a complete turn, and I think it was meeting people like all of you. Stephanie and I both run local user groups where we live. And so we had the opportunity to meet the community internationally at conferences and events. And then we also have our own communities back at home that have really, you know, they keep everything going and moving. And that's our, you know, our local community and our family of data people that we can talk to people about, you know, whatever. So yeah, my journey was a little bit less traditional, but now I'm definitely in it.
Yeah, and I think for anyone who is attending, I would totally recommend you to watch, listen to Rob's podcast. That was amazing for various levels because I got mentioned in that. And also, it's actually a really, really nice podcast. And also, Shannon did a podcast for Casper's channel as well, where she talks about how coming from a completely different background to Power BI, that was also another very good thing to hear more about it, about them and their work and how they managed to come here. So following that, I want to ask a question. It's like could you tell us about your friendship? Like, you know, how it started? Well, you did say where you met, and you did mention, like, you know, how Steph helped you, like mentored you. I think I personally feel like I mean, knowing you both, you mentored each other. And how is it started, like, you know, and how it helped you?
Yeah, so I didn't mention where we worked when we met together. That was the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation, where I still work. But Shannon joined my larger team there a few years ago. How many years ago?
Almost 6 years ago.
6 years ago. Yeah, and she came in with her big smile and her big personality and her big ideas and
big personality.
She shot down some of my ideas, and I thought, I don't know if I like this new girl. But then we were forced to work on a project together. It involved all kinds of horrible mapping of different systems in Excel with all these different colors, and we named it Satan's Rainbow, and that really kind of solidified our friendship. And then Shannon was doing a whole bunch of work for one of her projects, and there was so much Excel, and she just wanted to cry all the time. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, you know, there's this really cool thing. It's called Power Query, and it might make your life easier. And, you know, a lot of times we have to really sell change to people. But Shannon was like, tell me more. And then, you know, she just jumped right in and basically changed her whole career.
Big time. Yeah. And honestly, from the analyst perspective, I'm sure, Prathi, you've heard me say this before, but I used to do a lot of combining files from various sources. And sorry, someone's profile picture is just making me giggle. I used to do a lot of combining files and collating data, and I spent like 90% of my time just cleansing data and putting it all together so it could be analyzed. And then the minute I learned about Power Query, I was like, this is magic. This changes my whole life. And then I had time to actually do real analysis. And so I think, you know, I come from more of the perspective of, you know, the people who are just getting into BI, or the people who are really starting from the Excel perspective. That's kind of where I come from, rather than the big data, all the fancy systems. I'm learning about that too. But yeah, the question was about our friendship, actually. And yeah, so I think after Stephanie and I started working together, really what happened was that her team was super small and there weren't enough people to build data models. She was really the only person doing it. And at that point, I was like, well, I need this for my countries that I support and they need it. And so I just started building things terribly, but I started building things, and then she would mentor me on how I could improve them and how we could make things better. And so yeah, it was through work, but then it obviously completely evolved.
And I would like to say one thing that I do love about our friendship is it's so fun to have a buddy, like a really close buddy in this community. So if I ever just need to bounce ideas, I can ping her anytime, and it's really also fun to have a buddy to ping her anytime, and it's really also fun to have a buddy to present. Sorry, I just heard some feedback.
There was a bit of echo. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so just having a buddy to do all this with makes it even more fun.
I mean, I totally agree. Like, I mean, whenever I meet you guys, like in conferences or anywhere, I feel that energy, like, you know, it's something like really, really nice. And yeah, I always wish, like, I wish I could have sorry, I was like,
What is happening?
I think it's a gift.
yeah, I think it's a gift. So yeah, there are many things going according to plan today. So yeah. So it was like it's really nice vibe to have friends who could where you could bounce ideas and do things. I think it just makes it feel a lot better. So that brings me to, sorry, James, I'm probably asking on the question. That brings me to the next question is, so how is this community helped you? And I also have, like, you know, what do you, like, you know, because obviously you both came from different backgrounds, and being a woman, like in the charity, because I worked in charity for 2 years, and I think surprisingly I see more women in charity than anywhere else. And you well, like at least one of you is who moved out of charity, and probably you see the difference is, like, you know, how you are part of having all these women, and it's not the same anymore. Like, especially you had your friend with you, like, you know, really close friend, and it's not same anymore. And there are many, it's a long question, but, like, you know, there are many women out there, like what do you suggest them, like, and how they can be where you are, whatever the background they are coming from, and how the community helped you to overcome all these things? Like, that's the end of the question. It's a long question.
I think the easiest way, if you're getting started, is just to find your local user group, because in my experience, everybody's really welcoming, so excited to have new people, so excited to share information. Nobody cares about your background. Nobody cares if you're brand new, what your history is. They're just excited to welcome you and share. I think that's probably the easiest way. Of course, not right now with pandemic and all, but with all the virtual groups, you still can. I started out kind of backwards. I didn't go to my local user groups first. I just ended up going to this big conference, and it really wasn't what I expected. I really thought that I would just be going to sessions and then going back to my hotel room, and that was it. But that was a total mistake. I found that people, especially when they found out that I worked in nonprofit, they wanted to help. So that was really nice. You know, people were excited to use their skills to help me do my work better, which was fantastic. So I just think the local communities are a really easy way to just get in and meet nice people who want to help you.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I will piggyback off of that. So I'm actually based in Washington, D.C., And that is where there is a lot of United States federal government workers. There are a lot of charity nonprofit workers, and then there are also a lot of consultancies. So there are these like 3 distinct groups. And so it was with my local user group that I tried to connect the different people so that the people with resources and skills were able to help the people that work at charities and also the people that work in the government. So it was really like I don't want to say it happened organically because that sounds so cliche, but it was really nice to be able to connect people together. And like Stephanie mentioned, people want to help each other. So like in our local user group, if someone reaches out to me and says, I want to build my first report, but I really don't know how, like, can you help me? I will go, I mean, not right now, but I'll go meet them at a coffee shop, or I will say, you know what, that's not really my skill set, but that's someone else in the group who I know is really strong in this. And our group has grown to like 800 people and everybody helps each other. It's so nice. And I think we have a team of 4 and who lead the group. 2 are women, 2 are men. And I think it's just a really nice balance. People look up to us, respect us for, you know, not only our technical skills, but also the other things we do for the group. And yeah, I think it's been good. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it did. It definitely did. So, I do want to address this, the mentoring thingy you have in between. So does the friendship. And like so would you recommend people to have a mentor who, and also like, you know, how can they get one? Like you're lucky to have somebody who like for you each other. So yeah.
So I keep trying to get Shannon to stop calling me her mentor. She says that it's like, we've moved on. It's time now. We're colleagues. We work together. We learn from each other. So this is not any kind of a formal mentor relationship. She needs to stop that.
But I can say, when I was working in the nonprofit sector, it was also, we did a lot of research and academia type work as well. And people were not interested in sharing their work with each other. Everything was proprietary. It was so that they could publish and get their names on a paper and all of that. So I didn't have anyone to talk to about my analysis or how I could make it better or what I could do with it. And it was really the first time in my career that I sought out a professional mentor and then made her my friend and just reeled her in. But it has been, I can't even tell you how valuable it's been for my career. I went from working at a nonprofit to then doing consulting where I had lots of different clients. And something that was really nice about it was anytime I wanted to talk through an idea, I knew that if I was stumped, I could always call Stephanie or someone in my user group or you, Prathi. Like we always had resources to reach out to. And I think, you know, as I go through my career, I know now what to look for in a mentor and how to seek one out. So I've learned a lot from this relationship. Now friendship, but.
Yeah. Well, that's nice to hear. James, do you have any last questions before we jump into the actual session?
Yeah, we probably should let you present your session in a moment, shouldn't we? Actually, one thing I'm particularly interested in, and I think you've talked about it a little bit. I'm going to do a Prathi and do a 2-part question. Seen as Prathi's all the questions so far. So firstly, you've talked about the importance of the Power BI community and how you've grown your own communities. But how do you balance that community side alongside your professional commitments? Because obviously there's certainly competition for time there, and obviously with the rest of life as well. But the other side to the question is a bit more relevant to this session particularly, and that's how do we get more women involved in firstly those communities, but generally in data as a whole?
I'll start with this one. Balancing time and juggling commitments has never been a strength of mine. I always overcommit and probably underdeliver. I'm trying to get better at that. But to me, I feel sort of, a sense of responsibility because the community helped me so much at the beginning. It was a lot of me asking questions and people answering my questions and helping me out. And I feel now that I'm able to give some of that back. I still have plenty of questions, don't get me wrong, but I'm able to give some of that back. So to me, that is the really fulfilling part, and it's why I make time for it. But I can definitely say that it is my evenings and weekends, and I spend a lot of time doing this, but it's still fun for me. The pandemic is a whole added layer of complexity, but I create time for it because it is fulfilling for me and because it changed my whole career genuinely. But I am single and I live alone and I'm locked in my house because there's a global pandemic. So my situation is a little bit different. What about you, Steph?
I also find it very difficult, especially with the pandemic. I'm very surprised you haven't heard my dog bark or my kids run through the back here right now. So yeah, I think it's a lot to balance, and I also feel like I don't do it well, and I wish I did it better. But not only, like Shannon said, do you feel like you want to give back and just give back to the community what we got from the community, but I also genuinely feel like it has helped the organization where I work. It benefits them to have me spend time with the community 100% without a doubt, because I know who to ping when I have a hard question. I can ask anybody for help. Prathi even volunteered for us. It's a great community, and we absolutely, the entire organization has benefited from my involvement in the community. So if you need to sell it to your boss, that's how you do it.
And as far as getting other women involved, I think my approach is a little bit different because I have a non-technical background. So my pitch is always, if I can do this, anybody can. I think there's a lot of hesitancy to dip your foot into the pool of a new technology because it's hard or it's scary or that's how I feel. So this is just, maybe I'm projecting onto other people. But
no, I think you're totally right.
Yeah, so I like to start small and, have one-on-one meetings with people. At our user group, we do just 5-minute demos where people can come and present on something they've been working on, just show it off or ask questions, get feedback from the group. So I like to try to ease people in slowly and help them understand. I just say I can barely do arithmetic. That's real. Okay, but I can use Excel and I can use Power BI and I understand, how the math works. I just can't do it in my head. But so I feel like if you can make it less intimidating for people, that goes a long way.
That's
Brilliant.
We also have to do better getting women to present. I find it very hard every single time. That's another reason I like having a presenter buddy, because she helps me when I'm just panicked and stressed out, and I think, why did I sign up for this? That's one thing. But also, I think we all need to check ourselves when we see that there's a woman presenting that we don't know. We need to assume she knows what she's talking about, and I think that happens a lot. Women are underestimated. I know I have felt underestimated many times. So we need to check ourselves and assume women know what they're talking about.
And I have just one other thing to add to that. Sorry, we could talk about this for days. But I recently was speaking at a conference and I noticed on the website that all of the speakers were men, with the exception of myself. And I reached out to the organizers and I said, hey, how can I help you make this a more diverse experience for other people? And, I think just the fact that I mentioned it made that individual more aware. And it just helps me to be more aware myself of what's going on and to check my own privilege and to understand that we need this to be approachable for everyone. That's the only way it's going to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I mean, I could ask so many more questions, but maybe we could have a only Q&A session sometime. So yeah, so I think one last question I'm going to ask before we finish the Q&A is what is one advice you want to give to the future, whoever looking up to you?
Give yourself a break. I feel like we're so hard on ourselves, and I feel like I never know enough, and I'm always behind. And luckily, I have a buddy who says, "You're keeping children alive in a global pandemic. Give yourself a break." So I think we all have reason to give ourselves a break and just keep trying to learn more and keep trying, just keep going. But give yourself a break.
Yeah, I think.
And I would also say, the only person that is going to challenge us, especially if you're in a workplace where you don't get to use Power BI, but it's really your interest, or if you're learning some new technology and you don't get to use it every day, challenge yourself. Join some sort of community initiative where you practice it daily. Challenge yourself to learn new things. Sign up for presentations where you have to become an expert on it relatively quickly. We're the only people that can push ourselves. And of course, you have to have the time to do it, and that's a privilege in and of itself. But I would say, don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Fantastic. And it's okay to be afraid and do it anyway.
Great advice.
Yes, totally. So thank you so much for this Q&A. I'm sorry we're running a bit late today, but we are recording the session, so it's good. So I think now I'll stop talking and stop holding my mobile in a really awkward position as well. And it's over to you, and you're going to do your magic spell session from your amazing data witches. I was meant to talk about your blog, but my whole network failures took me there. Maybe you guys could talk about it.
Sure. Yes. Thank you so much. All right. So I guess we will jump in to the presentation. As Stephanie and I switch between presenting, we'll drop some links into the chat for folks to have. We want to make sure that everyone walks away with this with some resources. So with that being said, let's get started. So we are going to talk about a few of our favorite time-saving tricks with Power BI. They're a little bit all over the place. We've got some kind of front-end reporting, data viz tricks. We've got some Power Query tricks. And then Stephanie has a really cool trick to talk about, just connecting Power BI data models to other Office applications. So that is awesome. One other thing that I wanted to just request as we go through this presentation, I know there are quite a few people on the line. If you are able to drop your favorite trick into the chat at any point in the presentation, maybe even with a link, I think that would be really helpful. We're kind of crowdsourcing favorite tricks here. So I want to just make sure that everyone has an opportunity. If you have something that's really cool or it's your go-to and you use it all the time, please drop it into the chat. And if we see it as we're presenting, we'll try to call it out. I'm going to go through, should we just skip over our intros?
Yeah, we already did.
Okay, so you guys know who we are. These are some really adorable pictures. That's Stephanie as a child. She looks exactly like her daughter. It's pretty amazing.
All right, just skipped over your child pictures. Nice.
So we are here to talk today about Power BI tips and tricks. We want to make sure that we do some level setting first. So if you have never used Power BI, we want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. We're then going to talk to you about 4, if we have time, but we'll keep an eye on the clock, 4 of our favorite tips and tricks. So let's jump in. Very quickly. I think for us, the goal of using Power BI is to empower people to make data-driven decisions so that we're no longer saying, yeah, we're an evidence-based organization, we're data-driven. And then when you start to dig, there's not as much there, or you know that there could be more. So we really believe that Power BI is to empower people to make, slice and dice the data in whatever the way they want and make decisions with it. So essentially all we're doing with the tool is connecting to data. We're then visualizing it, making beautiful charts and graphs that sell themselves, sharing insights across an organization or between organizations, and of course, making sure that we're using these customized dashboards and reports to be able to share information. If you're not familiar with the Power BI kind of universe, we just wanted to mention, what you're going to see us working in today is mostly within Power BI desktop. This is where you most often develop your reports, build your data models, connect to data, do your data cleansing, all of that. We are then going to publish those Power BI desktop reports up to the Power BI service. This is just the web, okay? And it is in the Power BI service where people are going to access those reports. I would encourage you, if you have not had a chance yet to check out the Power BI mobile application, I should say, I would really encourage you to take a look at that mobile app. It is really impressive. They're making a lot of changes to it. And when we met, we were working at an organization that worked in really remote places out in Africa. And we had a lot of success with our end users accessing reports on their mobiles using the mobile app. So that's just a quick shout out for that. One other thing that I like to emphasize, and this is really for end users to understand, people who are building Power BI more than likely already understand this, but I like to emphasize to people when I'm giving them this overview that Power BI is not a database. One thing that you'll hear Stephanie talk about in her last tip is how to use the data from Power BI in other applications. But we really struggled, I think, for the first couple of years, helping our end users to understand what the tool really was and what it functioned for. So if anyone wants to talk about those challenges, we are here for you. Okay, and this is the last thing I want to show before we jump into our demos. If anyone has not seen this, there is a woman in the community named Melissa Coates.
They interviewed her last time.
Oh yeah, she was already on Power of Women in Data. Okay, so you guys are familiar with Melissa. She has this incredible end-to-end diagram of Power BI. I just wanted to show this for those of you that aren't familiar with the whole ecosystem. There's a lot going on here, but I did want to just mention, if you go to Melissa's website, coatesdatastrategies.com, she has incredible resources for deployment. So I would say, please check this out if you have time. And with that, I'm going to pass the torch over to Stephanie, and she's going to take us into our first demo.
Yes, let me just figure out how to do that. Share my screen this time. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. Okay, so this one, we're gonna try to, we wanna stay in our time allotment here, so I may go a little bit fast. I'll try not to, but this demo is putting the fun in functions. So I think functions are just one of the neatest tricks in Power BI. It's a way where if you have to do something over and over to a different thing, you can just write it once. You do not have to write it 8,000 times, which I have been guilty of in the past. So when I learned about functions, mind blown. So the function that I'm going to show you is how to scrape some data off the web. And I have to give a shout out to Paul Turley because he's the one who taught me functions, and he taught me with this exact website. And I just think it's the most fun way to do it. So this is the National UFO Reporting Center. So if you see a UFO, go here and report it. And in here, if I go to enter site, if I'm connected to the web, and over here there's a report database, and I'm going to look at it by date posted. But unfortunately, if I want to get all this data, it's not so easy because it's all broken down by different dates here on the left. If I click one of the dates, I can see all of the UFO reports from the date that was posted. So just imagine if you wanted to combine all of this data, it's not really going to be easy. You're going to have to go through, click each link, scrape it, add it together. That would be a nightmare. But luckily, Power Query is really, really good at something like this. So I'm just going to show you how to do that. In Power BI Desktop that Shannon mentioned, if you go to the Transform Data tab, that's where you do your magic to combine your data and clean it and organize it. So I have this already done, pre-baked Julia Child style, but I'm going to just do it anyway for you. If I wanted to get just the list of those days, I can go here to the URL and I can tell Power BI that I want to get some data from the web. I go to New Source, Web, and all I have to do is put in the URL. It's really that easy. And it's going to go out to the web now, and it's just thinking about it. And it's going to ask me if there are multiple tables on that page, which one do I want? So it's gone out, and there's only one. So if I click it, Power BI gives me this little preview. And that looks just like what we saw on the web back here. We saw reports and the count of reports for that day. So I'll say, yes, please give me that table, Power BI. And I click OK. And there it is, very nice. And over here on the right, I can see that Power BI did some handy things for me. It got the web page, it extracted it into a table, it moved the first row up, and then it changed the type of the data to a date and a number. So cool, thanks Power BI. And I didn't have to write a thing. So, but unfortunately, this just gives me the date. But what if I want the actual data, right? So let me see what that looks like for one date. So if I go back here again and I click on one day, I look up here at the URL and I think, oh, okay, it looks like it's doing it based on the year, the month, and the day. All right, so that's probably pretty consistent. So now if I do this page, I can just get this page's worth of data. Tell me if I'm going too long.
This is great.
Okay.
Keep on keeping on.
All right, so now we're going to do new source again. Actually, let's label the first one. We'll name this one all dates. Wrong computer. Okay, so now let's get that specific date. So we can do new source, web again, and now I put in the URL for that specific date. So it's thinking again. Gives me a little preview again. And this is cool. This is exactly what I want. And I can scroll over and I can see, yep, this is all the data posted on January 19. So I'll say, yes, Power BI, thank you. This is the one that I want. And now it puts it here. So how about I label this one Jan 19. Okay, so if I want to get it for every date though, seriously, am I going to have to do a query for every single day? Fortunately, no. That's where the fun and functions comes in. So there's a cool trick. First, you have to create a parameter. This is the one thing that's going to change every time you call the query. You can have multiple parameters for a function, but in this case, we're just going to do one. So up here in the ribbon, under Manage Parameters, I'll just do a new parameter, and I'll say posted date. And it will be text. Oh, I already have it. Date posted. That's going to confuse me for sure. And the current value I'll put in is going to be, how about this one? 21/01/19. So year, MMDD, right? And so here's my new parameter, and I can change it if I want. So the trick is just to use this parameter now in my query. So this is the little bit tricky part, is if I go up here in the source step, that's where I put in that original URL, but now I want to use my parameter instead so that it can change. So to do that, I'm going to highlight it and get rid of that hard-coded part, close my quote, add my date posted. Maybe I don't need quotes. I never remember. Somebody can correct me. And then put the quote back in. And let's see if that works. Ideally, it won't be a big error. Okay, it wasn't a big error. So nothing actually changed. So if I go down to the end of the steps, we can see it's still January 19. And then to see how it works, if I wanted to go to a different date in here, what do I have? 2020, 12/23. So if I go back to my little parameter and change this to 20/12/23 and hit enter, now my January 19 data is no longer going to be January 19. It's going to be December 23. So that's pretty cool. So now I have this one query where I can put a parameter in. So all I have to do now, though, is if I want to run this query on all of my dates, all I need to do is turn this into a function. But how do you do that? Of course, Power BI makes it easy. I can right click, and because I have a parameter in it, I can just go create function. And I'll give it a name, get UFO data. That's the name of my function. So now it did this whole cool thing where it set up a little group of queries. It has my parameter, it has my function, and now I can just call that function whenever I want. So the way to do that, I have to get that value that needs to go into that string, and it has to be the right format. I'm not going to show you exactly how to do that right now because of time, but I did it earlier with not that one. Here we go. Okay, so this was where we left off before, right? We got our just list of dates. And then I just did a couple things. I sorted, I filtered it down to the top 5 rows so it runs faster. And then I added a custom column. So this is just the format of that string. And then the next step, all you literally have to do when you have something right that you can pass into your function is go add column and click invoke custom function. When you do that, a little dialog will come up. You give it a new column name and you tell it which one you want. So I could say, give me get UFO data and pass in the column formatted date. And when I do that, that's the really cool trick. It's going to run out and it's going to run that function on all 5 of those rows. I already did it, so I'm just going to click cancel. So when you do that, you get another column. It's thinking, and each one of those is a table. So it's the same table that's the output of that function. If I click in the cell, I get a little preview of it down here. So I can see here's the January 19 data and the December 23 data, et cetera, et cetera. Then all you have to do is expand the column and then you get all the data. So one of the great things about this is that you can change your function too. So if I go in here and I update what's in the function, if I ask it to add another column or change something, it's going to do it for all the functions, for all the outputs, sorry. So that is a fun function. You can do this for a lot of different things. This is not the only use case, it's just my favorite way to show it.
Now, we know you're all on mute, so we can't hear how much fun you're having with functions. But hopefully you guys find that one useful. Okay, we heard the applause. Thank you so much. We are now going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about some front-end design type work. So I am going to now share my screen.
That's great. There's my family.
And we're going to jump back into Power BI. Alrighty, so there are just a few things that I wanted to mention talking about the design work in the front end of Power BI. So what I'm really referring to is, you know, when you as a developer, designer, maker, builder, whatever it is you call yourself, I usually wear cargo pants with a hammer in them just to let people know who I am. When you are building, you really typically, a lot of us spend like, I don't know, 90 to 95% of our time building and shaping the data, making everything useful, making sure we have the right metrics in there in the right format, building out a nice star schema, all that jazz takes most of our time. And then I know I myself spend the last, 5 to 10% of my time slapping some visuals on the canvas and saying, hey, does this suit what you want? Now, do I know that that's not the best way to do things? Absolutely. Of course, I know that. But in reality, I often get stuck, spending very little of my time on the report design. So I've made it a goal of mine for this year to really focus on report design, making sure that I understand data viz best practices and making sure that I'm building reports that are really useful for my end users. So this is Penelope. So what I like to do, I just wanted to show a couple of tricks of some fast formatting. So the first thing I wanted to mention is in Power BI, when you are building a report, if you are not yet using these grid lines here, you can turn these on and off just on the View tab of the ribbon in Power BI, and they are really quite nice. And on the screen that I'm looking at right now, I actually cannot really see them, but they're really useful for being able to make sure that your objects are aligned. The next tip that I wanted to show is just some really simple alignment tips. And these are things that you probably use in PowerPoint. I know that a lot of people have mentioned that Power BI is now like PowerPoint for data, which I think could be accurate in some ways. But what I like to do is to take, let's say I have a bunch of card visuals. I'll go ahead and make sure that I distribute these horizontally. Okay, so they're all spaced out evenly, and then I go ahead and align top. Okay, that seems like a really kind of silly trick. It's pretty simple, but it's really useful when you're trying to align your visuals. I know when I first started building, I spent a lot of time here in the general tab in the formatting pane, making sure that my X and Y were all perfectly aligned, but really I could have just aligned top. So there's that one. The next thing that I want to talk about is taking our visual from this, which is fine. This is okay. We've got, 27,000 sightings. There's a quick little map of where they are. But notice the difference between this and this. It's the exact same information, okay? But one is just a little bit nicer to look at, and it may help guide your users to what they should be seeing. So the trick here, and I hope that many of you know this, but if you don't, hopefully we're about to blow your minds here.
Wait, I'm sorry. Who taught us this trick, Shannon?
Oh, and this trick we actually learned in Dublin from Profi. Yeah, so this is the how to get yourself some fancy backgrounds. And there are a number of different ways you can do it, but the one that I am going to show today is just in PowerPoint. So I'm going to open up a new PowerPoint presentation here. I'm going to call this UFO sightings. I'm not sure why I underlined it, but fat fingers, it's okay. And what I actually don't mind doing is I take these design ideas over here on the right hand side and I'll use these. So I kind of like this one. It looks pretty neat. Let me zoom back out so we can see what we're looking at. I'm just going to move this up to the top. I'm going to remove this subtitle. I'm going to add a couple of shapes. And this way you can get the nice curved edges. I'm going to then, just arrange these on the page. I could use my same trick there to distribute horizontally and vertically. And voila, that is my background. That's it. That's all we have to do. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. Let's just save it to this folder. And I'm going to save this as a JPEG. And we're going to call this PPT. What's up here? PPT background. We go ahead and save that. Already exists. Sure, let's replace it. And we're going to take just this slide. I'm going to jump back into Power BI. Okay, now one thing that you can see here is we actually have a little inbuilt branded kind of slide going on back here. So let me remove that. So if you jump over here to the formatting paint roller where you have no visuals selected on the page, okay, jump to the formatting paint roller, go to page background, remove our inbuilt one. Okay, oftentimes when you add an image, the transparency is default set to 100, which doesn't work because then you can't actually see anything. So pull this down to 0. Or, wherever it is that you need it. And let's add our new background. Okay, that makes a world of difference. So that's tip number 2 for this little demo, is to add your PowerPoint background. Okay, the next tip is using something that Gina already mentioned in the chat. So Gina, you are light years ahead of us, but I love this tip. And this is to use the Format Painter. This also exists in other Office products, so it's not unique to Power BI, but it is very cool. So let's, for example, go ahead and format this one card visual exactly how we want it. So I'm just going to jump over here to my formatting paint roller. I am going to format my data label. Let's go ahead and make this white so we've got some nice contrast. Text size is fine. Let's make sure we look at that. Okay, great. I'm then going to format my category label. And we're going to make this one dark. I'm going to bump up the text size just a little bit so you can see it. That to me looks better. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and make our lives easier and apply that to our other card visuals. You can also use the Format Painter between visuals of different types. So I'll go ahead and apply that to my bar chart. It worked when I was practicing this. And okay, so whatever I changed in that one did not work on the bar chart, but that is okay. All right, so Format Painter is tip number 2. So we've aligned our visuals, we've formatted things the way we want them. Oh, one thing I wanted to point out, when you are going through picking these different colors for either your text in your card visuals or for, you know, your bar chart, any of your colors, you have this option here to set the colors in the way that you really want them. So if you are, you know, by background, you're a designer and you really understand how the contrast needs to be and how the colors work together, what you can do is add the hex codes here for your values. Okay, now there are a couple of different websites that I like to use to look at the hex colors, and let me just make sure I have this pulled up here. I'll drop these in the chat. So there is a color picker that I like to use, but let me just pull it up on the screen so that everybody can see it. All right, so this is the imagecolorpicker.com. Hold please. Imagecolorpicker.com. And I put apparently the wrong link into my document for sharing with you all. Okay, perfect. So with this, there are a couple of different things you can do. You can upload your own image, and then from here, it'll show you the color palette that works nicely with that image. You can also click on a certain place in the image, and it'll show you the hex code of that particular value. And something that I really like is that you get this whole palette here. So imagecolorpicker.com is a great one when you're trying to look at your overall color scheme and make sure that things work together so that you're drawing your user's eyes towards the values that are important rather than just putting distracting colors on the page. I would argue that this pink is very distracting. This is not a DataViz best practice right here. Speaking of distracting, one other tip that I did want to mention is when you are working with visuals, so whatever kinds of visuals those are, we want to make sure that we're removing unnecessary noise from our visuals. So if you do not need grid lines, if you do not need axis labels, pick one or the other. You don't necessarily need both. And remember, what is the purpose of the visual that you are building? What are you trying to show users? What is it that you're trying to point out? Let's see. Okay, the final tip that I want to mention here, there are so many with visuals, but this is not all about visuals, so let me move on. But the final thing that I wanted to mention that I find really, really useful is oftentimes we have to stick to our corporate branding. So if you need to use a special theme in your report so that you're not formatting each visual one by one, you're going to go ahead and do that here on the View tab of the ribbon. You have the option to use your themes here. Now, you can use the inbuilt themes. I really like the executive. There's a high contrast theme in here so that you can make sure that it is colorblind friendly. You also can import your own theme. There's a really nice site, powerbi.tips, where they have a theme generator, and we'll drop that into the chat. So you can generate your own theme that's very customizable, but something I like to do is to just do this right here in Power BI, customize the current theme. We are going to get a pop-up that shows us all of the different options for you to customize. So you've got your name and colors, you've got your text. One just quick tip on the text, we never want our text to be smaller than 12 point if people are viewing on a computer screen on a monitor, no smaller than 12. This is a really nice one. I always like to fix this right away. And what you can do with this is you can create, if you're a developer or you're working in a smallish shop and you want to create a template for your organization to use, you can do that right in here and you don't even have to jump out of the product. So that's really nice. Okay, I'm going to take a breath. That is just a few of my own favorite tips and tricks for the front end design type work. And hopefully I'll read through the chat once Steph jumps back into her presentation. Hopefully some of you all have dropped your favorites in there. Stephanie, do you have any other front end design types of tricks that you love?
Oh, you just sprung that on me. So I mean, I might, but not without any warning.
Okay,
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so we are now going to jump back over to Stephanie, and she is going to show us, this is, I feel like I need to do a drum roll. This is the demo we've all been waiting for. I'm very excited about this. So Stephanie is going to show us how she uses Power BI to eliminate manual processes for other people that we work with. So Steph, do you want to jump in and start sharing your screen?
Sure. First, a little background on this. I build a lot of Power BI reports, and I always hope that's what people are going to use all the time. They're not going to use anything else. They're just going to use my Power BI reports. But then, of course, people need to do other things, and they also are comfortable in other tools. And so we all know that people's favorite button is export to Excel. It breaks my heart every time I see people are doing it, because then, their data is disconnected. The moment they export to Excel, it's not connected anymore. So when we get new data in the model, it's not going to be part of whatever they're doing with it. So one of the things over the past year that we've been trying to do at EGPAF is really work on teaching our users about Analyze in Excel. And it's been a struggle. And they get their new data in the Excel file. So with that, what then we found out people were doing is still copying and pasting their Excel work into Word documents that they then had to turn into PDF documents to submit to donors, and they could be 60 pages long.
Or longer.
Or longer. And they were filled with a big narrative that depended on the data and lots of tables and lots of charts from Excel. And it just took people so much time to do, particularly because the data could be changing up till the day the report is due. So people are up all hours of the night trying to get the most updated data in these reports. So of course we thought, well, there has to be a way to make this a little bit easier so they don't have to be copying and pasting all the time. And I thought, well, am I going to have to write some macro or something? So imagine my delight when I Googled it, and it turns out there's a super easy way to link your Word or PowerPoint documents to an Excel file, which you can have linked to your Power BI data model through Analyze in Excel. So as Shannon and I do, as we're trying to prepare for these things, we just make it extra hard on ourselves. So as I was trying to prepare this yesterday, I thought, well, I should just write a blog post about it. So you can find all the details in our Data Witches blog, because I wrote it literally yesterday for this presentation. But I do want to just show how to do it a little bit, because I think it's such a neat trick. So let me share my screen once I figure out which one to share. And I'll show you how to do it real fast. I'm totally lost. It's upstairs. It's in the pile.
Maybe there's notebook.
I think so.
No, maybe there's notebook. It's in the
Okay, I'll help you in just a minute, okay? Okay.
This is parenting during the school day during a pandemic.
Yes. Okay. I think I'm sharing our faces now, which isn't exactly what I meant to do. Oh, this is the one I want. Okay. Am I sharing the right thing?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So this is the data model that Shannon and I built with using the fun functions. And now we've published it to the service, which Shannon mentioned earlier. And this is the thing that you have to do if you want to analyze your Power BI data in Excel. So you need to publish it to the service because that's how you can get this nice connection to your data model. And that's how you can also set up automatic refresh so that people analyzing data in Excel are constantly getting the latest data. So this is now published. And if I want to use this data in Excel as an end user, I can just click this down arrow on File, Export, and then click Analyze in Excel. When you do that, it's going to download this file. You can also connect to a Power BI data model from some versions of Excel. I don't have the version of Excel you can do that with, so this is the other route. So just save the file somewhere and then open it. I, of course, already have one, which is here. Nope, not this one. Here it is. Thank you. Okay, so this file is connected to that data model, and hopefully it's not going to yell at me. So I think it's going out and it's trying to get the data right now. So it may say you need to log in, or it may just work. Yay, it works! Okay, so when you do analyze in Excel, you have this connection to your published data model in the service, and the way that you interact with it generally is through pivot tables or pivot charts. That's the easiest way to do it because you just start, slapping your data onto some tables and some pivot charts, etc. You can also do cube formulas if you want to access that data not through a pivot table or pivot chart, which you may have to do because perhaps somebody's Word report has a very specific format that they need the chart in or something like that. Don't want to get into that right now, but they're really cool. I like cube formulas. They make my head hurt a little bit, but they are very cool.
It's just an Excel formula, so you don't need to be afraid.
No, no, it's just ugly, but it's just an Excel formula. So anyway, I've clearly spent a lot of time making this chart, this very important chart for my very important report. And so what I can do with that, our default, what we generally do is we just copy the chart and then we paste it into PowerPoint or we paste it into Word as an image. And then again, it's disconnected. So we're out of luck when that data changes. But instead what you can do is you can open up a Word or a PowerPoint document. So let's just try it with Word. We'll do it with Word right now. And if I do a blank document, and then I go back to my Excel file, when I just click this and copy it, Control-C, just like we always do, the only difference instead of just pasting it into my Word document is we'll do a paste special. And instead of the default just pasting it, you paste a link to it. So this keeps that link then between your Excel file and your Word document. And I'll say that it is an Excel chart object. And when I click OK, nothing particularly magical here. It looks just like as if I had pasted it as an image. But when I go back, okay, I don't know why I'm futzing with it, but when I go back to Excel now, and let's say that the person who needs the report says, actually, I only want these 5 UFO shapes, and I click it in my slicer, and I'll just take a few of them. I mean, we have to get fireball in here because you need a fireball. Okay, so now that it's in here and it's saved in Excel, when I go back to Word, it didn't automatically update. It can be a little finicky. If it doesn't automatically update, I can right click and do update link. Now it's updated. So this is so cool, right? Because this is what our users are always asking for. They're asking, can I please make a PowerPoint with my Power BI visuals and have it linked and updated? And, we can't do that out of the box yet. So this is a little workaround for how you can get your PowerPoint and your Word file is connected to that Power BI data model. One neat trick that I think is super cool too is that in Word, I haven't found a way to do it in PowerPoint, so if anybody knows, let me know. You can even put the contents of a cell into like a paragraph. So I can write this data is so space exclamation mark. And if I go back to my chart, see this little cell, it's not even connected to my data model. It's just something I typed in. So if I copy here, and then before the exclamation mark, I will paste special again, but it's just slightly different. Here in the link, I want to do it as unformatted Unicode text. And I just click OK. And now I say, this data is so very cool. And then if I go back again and I change it to awesome.
We're Americans, so we say awesome a lot.
It didn't automatically update. Again, sometimes finicky, because sometimes you'll go back to Word and it'll just automatically update. But if not, I can do the update link, and there it is. So even within a paragraph, you can link it to Excel. Obviously, it has nothing to do with Power BI, but in my case, it's pretty important. For instance, because some of the text is dependent on Power BI. So maybe it'll be, this text will be like this data for fiscal year 2021 quarter one, blah, blah, blah. So I want to be able to access the quarter selected from my end user so they can put it in their narrative. And I can do that with the cube formula. So there's a lot more to do with this. You can really go down the rabbit hole, but I think it has a lot of potential. So that's that one.
Amazing. All right, so I'm going to take back over now, and we are going to jump back into my current passion project, which is my front end work, so the design kind of work in Power BI. And what I wanted to mention is that this takes a lot of practice, and there are a lot of rules that you may want to follow, best practices that you may want to follow. So I just wanted to show off some of those resources. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And what I'm going to point us to begin with is actually the Storytelling with Data blog. So this blog is not necessarily Power BI related. This blog is all about data viz, but what I wanted to do is just to show off some of the makeovers that they've done on this website. So what she does, Cole Knaflick, she takes like for example, I really like this one, the Global Competitive Summary. She takes what was once a pretty difficult to read, our favorite pie chart, and she puts it into this really nice, beautifully formatted bar chart. Something that I love about both Excel and Power BI is that they are very customizable. You can make things look the exact way that you want them to look by just tinkering around with the formatting options. Someone dropped in the chat earlier that it's nice to use the search bar, excuse me, in the formatting pane, which I completely agree with because there are so many different formatting options that you can use. Oh, and I just saw on the participant list, my uncle was on and he just left the meeting, so that's exciting. So one thing, going back to our data here, I wanted to point out that it is really customizable. Make sure that you are customizing things. The out-of-the-box visuals may be okay. They may suit your needs at first, but the further down the line you get into your report design, you may find that that isn't suitable for you anymore. So get some inspiration from the community. Check out the Storytelling with Data blog. I'm going to drop this into the chat quickly here. And then last but not least, I have an example from another friend of ours from the community. Her name is Megan Longoria. She has a blog. I thought I had it open. Give me just one moment here. Megan's blog is, she is technically savvy about 1,000,001 things, but she has a really nice data viz checklist that I love to use. So let me drop this into the chat. And it is just an Excel sheet. So her data viz checklist, what it does is there are 2 tabs. And the first tab talks you through, sorry, I'm just opening here, a little technical difficulty. Open Sesame. Not opening. I was in a cell in Excel, which is why it wouldn't open. Let me try again. Sorry for the delay here, everybody. All right, so we will make sure, I think Stephanie has dropped that link into the chat. So in this DataViz usability checklist, if you are just starting on your DataViz journey, go ahead and take a look at this resource that Megan has put out there. And she does update it occasionally, so you can always check back to the blog. But on the first tab here, it's a usability checklist that you can just go through when you publish your reports. One thing that may be nice is if you do this in your department and you are responsible for providing templates or for some sort of kind of quality control, you can tailor this to your own organization and make it work for you. So she has lots of different suggestions. For example, going back to that example we just looked at from the Storytelling with Data blog, for pie charts. Pie charts don't contain more than 3 slices. Okay, so there are lots of very concrete items that you can just check off as you're going through your visualization. And then last but not least, something that I think we could focus on more in Power BI is making sure that we're actually designing reports well. So this is my final tip and trick of our presentation, is just to take a look at some of these resources that Megan has shared, and she has blogged in depth about them. So making sure that we're balancing cognitive load. You're not putting too many visuals on the screen. One thing actually that I thought was interesting, I've been working on an initiative called Workout Wednesday, where folks are able to practice their data viz skills. And it's an initiative for both Tableau users and Power BI users. And something that I found really interesting was that, you know, in Tableau, when you build dashboards and visualizations, it's 1 page per visualization, and then you tie them all together. And so those users were surprised that in Power BI, you can put 100 different visuals on a page. Now, just because you can doesn't necessarily mean that you should. So just keep that in mind and take a look at Megan's list of, you know, she's got a great list of resources for you to work with here. So our hope for today is that you guys walked away with at least 1 new resource to help you do what it is that you need to do in Power BI. So with that, I think I'm gonna take a breath. We're gonna pause here, and I'd like to open up the floor to any questions, comments, tips that you wanna share. Or yeah, feel free to unmute yourself. You can ask questions in the chat. We can actually chat. Feel free to jump in.
There's another tip in the chat about using the search bar in the formatting tab, because sometimes it really is hard to find what you're looking for to format. That's a great tip.
And I love I hear myself. No, I love the Word and PowerPoint trick you showed. It's really nice.
Are there any other questions? Are there links that we said we'd share that we have not shared? I see a lot of familiar names on the attendee list, so we're really glad that you guys were able to join.
Let's see, Gina also mentioned that tip about the transparency. That one has gotten me more than once for sure. I think, what am I doing wrong? I put a background on here. Why isn't it showing? Because it's 100% transparent. So thank you for pointing that out.
Sometimes the default options in Power BI aren't exactly what you want. Oh, one other thing that I did want to mention, just on the data viz side, pay attention to your visual headers. Whether or not you have them turned on or off, you can do that in the formatting paint roller. You can also do it in the options and settings of your report. But if you want your users to be able to see that header so they can drill down, they can maybe use the export function to get the data into a CSV, leave it turned on. But if you have something very visually appealing, you don't want those little visual headers to pop up. So keep that in mind.
Did you put the Coates data strategies? Did you put her end-to-end diagram in there?
Yes, and let's just pull that up one more time. Sorry if I'm giving anybody whiplash. So it is coatesdatastrategies.com, and then if you navigate to her diagrams, so it's under community resources and then diagrams. Perfect. Any other resources that we lied to you about sharing?
Somebody is asking about slides.
Sure. Yeah, we don't have very many slides here, but we will happily drop those into a OneDrive file and share the link with you all.
Great.
Happily, yes.
And we can link that to the video whenever we publish it.
Yes. And you know what? Actually, we can also put our sample PBIX file in there because the data is publicly available out on the web. So if you want to see how Stephanie created that function, we'll include that as well.
That's great. And I will tell everyone to go and check out their blog.
Thank you.
Datawitches.com.
When we were talking earlier about how do you balance your community work and your work and your life, I have a lot of guilt about not blogging enough. So I would say, celebrate the one blog post that you did write if you do blog. And one other thing I want to mention is if you work on something and you're like, this trick is really cool, you can just write up an article on LinkedIn. You don't have to have like a hosted blog. You can just write something up and then you can share it widely. And if you tag any of us, we'll share it even more widely for you. So use that social network. Feel free to write things up, even if it's like 2 sentences, something cool that you found. I guarantee you someone else does not know that and you will be helping them.
Totally. Yeah. A quick question.
Okay, so Stephanie is going to take this question on Analyze with Excel.
When a user works on their downloaded file using Slicer, etc., for example, will this be overridden? Go back to default when the Power BI dataset gets updated. Will it go back? I don't think it will go back to the default. I haven't tried it, but I think when you save the file with your slicers in it, it's going to leave it with the selected slicers. It will just update the values in your chart. I'm talking as if I have done it, but that's what I'm thinking. But go ahead and try it and let us know.
And one just other quick tip to add, Mark mentioned in the chat that they were going to go pull down some UFO data. So I just wanted to drop in the Workout Wednesday link into the chat. So if you're interested in trying some of these data viz tricks or trying the function, this PBIX file is actually already posted to the Workout Wednesday site. So you could go grab it right now if you are like me and very impatient.
And Mary says it will. I think she's referring to the slicers. Thanks, Mary. I hope that that's what you were referring to.
Yeah, it's really nice to see familiar names in there. Hey, Mary. Cool. So if no one else has any more questions, I'm going to wrap up the call. Yeah. So thank you so much, Shannon and Steph. It's like, and I'm really sorry for this technical difficulties at the right time. I was about to open the lobby and then there you go. All the issues came in. But thank you so much. It was really, really nice to have you guys on this show. And I'm hoping I will see you sometime really soon.
Yes.
I really hope so.
Thank you for having us. This was really fun to do, even though, half an hour before I was saying, why did we agree to do this? It's too hard.
No, it's like, I think it was a very good session. Very, very good session. And you enjoy your nice time there and say hi to family. And I'll see you guys. So yeah, I'm going to speak to you soon then seeing you.
Okay.
All right.
Bye. Thanks so much, everybody. And have fun with all this. It's not that serious. It's fun.
You definitely should. Work-life balance questions that we were trying to ask. Like, it is what it is. And that's what the whole session is about. Like, showing it's not done anywhere. I don't think anyone managed to do that.
Well, yeah, I think having my daughter come through telling me she can't find her school book while I was presenting functions, that was exactly work-life balance, right?
Yeah. Totally. All right, thank you, and you enjoy your day.
Thanks so much, and you all have a good night.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.